Is this system that gives us our currency fair, honest, and just? Do we ask these questions of our monetary systems? No, I don't think we do. Do the central banks of the world open up their Bibles and go to Deuteronomy and say, "What saith the Lord about monetary policy?" No, they don't. It's a resounding no. Welcome to the first edition of the Bible and Bitcoin podcast. I am your host, Alin Armstrong, aka Pastor Coin, and today we're talking about the Bible, Bitcoin, and the future of Christianity. Now, there is undeniably a connection between money and morality. We all know that. I've been talking about this for a few years now, but even more importantly, there is an undeniable connection between money and our minds. Now think about your thoughts for a moment with me. How much do you suppose you think about money? One study reported by NBC News on September 9th, 2015, that the average American spends about 30%, that's right, 30% of their waking life thinking about money. Well, I do find that statistic interesting because if you survey the parables of Jesus, somewhere between 25 to 30% of the parables of our Lord Jesus Christ use money or economics or the language of economics to help us better understand eternal truths. Now, it's almost, maybe I'm just in left field here, but it's almost as if God knows what you think and worry about the most. Now, despite all the time we spend thinking about money, the irony is we don't stop to actually think about money, if you catch my drift. That is, we don't really stop to contemplate what money is. We worry about paying the bills, getting a job, building our businesses, advancing our careers, but for what? Why do we do all these things? For money? A thing that the vast majority of us can't even define? Now, imagine spending all your life's energy to earn something without stopping to examine that thing if it's even worth earning. Complete madness. Now, this has massive spiritual consequences because not all money is created equal. Whether we realize it or not, the money we earn affects our choices at a subconscious and, dare I say, even spiritual level. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, come on, it's just money. Sure, but is it? If it's just this neutral thing, if the money we use is of no consequence, then why has God given us clear guidelines about the fundamental characteristics of what righteous financial transactions should be like? Look, the reality is God is not silent on the issue, and for good reason. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 13 to 16, put it this way. Now, listen carefully to the words of the Lord in Deuteronomy 25 here. Listen to what God has for us. He says, "You shall not have in your bag two kinds of weights, a large and a small. You shall not have in your house two kinds of measures, a large and a small. A full and fair weight you shall have. A full and fair measure you shall have, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. For all who do such things, all who act dishonestly," listen, "all who act dishonestly are an abomination to the Lord your God." Wow. The common thread throughout this whole passage is one of equality, fairness, honesty, balance, shalom. Many of us read this and think, okay, don't steal, be honest in finances, and we move on. But we need to pump the brakes here for a second and think in terms of first principles. Is the system of money we have, that is dollars, if you're in America or wherever, your fiat currency, is this system that gives us our currency fair, honest, and just? Do we ask these questions of our monetary systems? No, I don't think we do. Does the dollar, the fiat monetary network, does it abide by this law in its policies? Do the central banks of the world open up their Bibles and go to Deuteronomy and say, "What saith the Lord about monetary policy?" No, they don't. It's a resounding no. The Bible and Bitcoin podcast is sponsored by Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is a Bitcoin-only exchange. It's non-custodial, so you don't have to trust them with your Bitcoin. It's feature-rich and always improving. They have a Christian CEO and are an all-around amazing place to get your Bitcoin. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/pastorcoin and start stacking today. Fiat money is what I like to call political slave coin. It's nothing more than political currency units. It is not a system that functions on the law of sowing and reaping. Instead, it is a counterfeit creation system. Now, what do I mean by that statement, the counterfeit creation system? In the beginning, God spoke all things into existence. All that is objectively valuable in creation was spoken by God into existence. It was by his decree that it was made. And he saw it and he declared what? That it was good. By God's decree, real value was created. Bankers and the false fiat money deities, aka central banks, think they can just say, they can just create and decree, let there be money, and poof, it comes into being. But only God has the power to decree value. Fiat means by decree, by royal decree in the context of the book of Genesis. So what we have here is a war between divine fiat and human and carnal fiat. God created the world to operate in this law of sowing and reaping. We're made in God's image and we're privileged with sowing and reaping real value using the good things God has given us. And this goes to the core, hear me, this goes to the core of our identity. We were made to work, to earn, to trade, to be fruitful and multiply. The money we use, therefore, must be consistent with that principle, with that truth. Think with me again. What do you suppose would happen if a man worked and toiled for a money that some other man could just create with zero effort? Think hard and deep now. Would it not devalue and debase that man? Would it not demoralize that man? It would not make the man any less the image of God. That's not what I mean when I say devalue. What I mean is it would devalue the time and energy he expended, thus oppressing, robbing, and hindering the man from his God-given purpose. And once that happens, as we see all around us, chaos ensues. Look, money is simply this. Money is the technology that humans use to store our time and our energy. You see, money's not the main thing here. The most precious and scarce commodity we have as humans in God's image is our time. Devalue money, you devalue the time of those holding that money and thus rob them of their most precious gift God has allotted to them, time, their life. So now consider the world we live in. Is it any wonder that the moral degeneracy is at all-time highs and people have never been in such a state of confusion? Is it any wonder that under this fiat system wherein carnal men are so puffed up as to think they can decree value like God does, is it any wonder, therefore, that our children think they can just decree their gender? Inflation is getting so bad, people are becoming hopeless for the future. I mean, why have kids when we can just feed ourselves? When we rather can't even feed ourselves. How am I going to bring kids in the world if I can't even feed my own self? Why invest in the future? Why invest in the next generation when we're so preoccupied with the misery of the present that we can't actually begin to hope for the future that may never come? Your family, your nation, and your world needs strong men. The devil wants men weak, emasculated, and addicted to porn. This is why I designed the Slaying the Beast course to help men take back the dominion porn stole from them. This course will help you discover your identity as God's image, how porn leverages and twists that against you, and how with God's help you can turn the tables on the beast and live free. There's also access to a Discord server where you can have fellowship with others in the fight. You do not have to wait any longer to conquer this beast once and for all. Go to lifegiverchurch.net to get started today. How often I have heard well-meaning Christians in their despair say things like, "Have children? Are you crazy? I don't want to bring them into this crazy world." That would be, some have said, even evil. This insidious beast of fiat money has been slowly but surely stretching its tentacles into every facet of our life. Yes, even, unfortunately and sadly, the church. It has devalued the technology we use to store our time and our energy, and has unwittingly devalued our view of time itself. Every institution has had their time horizon shrink. Look at the modern Western church. Is it thinking long term? Is it? No, it's only thinking about how to get people in the pew now. Now I'm generalizing, of course. Win them with entertainment and flash. Don't teach men to lead their families in daily family worship. Don't teach families to worship together on Sunday. No, that's too much work. Ship the kids off to the pagans Monday to Friday. Let the pagans and God haters educate the children. Then come Sunday, ship them off to Sunday school so the parents can get to big people church without those pesky little nuisances. Look, I'm using strong language, but is this not the case? The kids grow up, then they leave the faith in college because they've been educated by pagans their whole life. It's all too common. Now, am I saying that this is all to blame on fiat money? No, not at all. Not all of it. But my goodness, my brethren, use some common sense. Did we really think that ignoring all of God's commandments and standards when it came to something as important as money was going to go well for us? Do we really think spurning God in the area of economics and money was not going to have a catastrophic ripple effects? You say, it's not because of fiat money that we see this degradation. It's because we have forsaken God. And I say, exactly. We see this degradation precisely because we have forsaken God and not what? Obeyed his clear word about money. Fiat money falls into this category. So what does Bitcoin have to do with the future of Christianity, you might be asking? Well, it's not so much Bitcoin, but the incentives that a sound God-honoring money would reorient our minds to. Bitcoin is the most sound money humans have ever had. It can't be inflated. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. It is not easily created. It takes real world energy input with real tangible computer hardware to mine these Bitcoins into existence and keep the network going. And maybe most importantly, it's decentralized. It's separating money from the state. And what makes up the state? Human beings, sinful human beings. Bitcoin is rules without rulers. It is scarce digital money outside the control of sinful governments. Imagine if you could work hard and save enough money that no government controlled, that was inflation-proof, censorship-resistant, and that you could take with you anywhere you wanted with no permission. How would that collectively change the incentive structure and mindset of people? Would this cure every societal ill? No, of course not. But think of it this way. Would humanity repenting from fiat money, which is inherently a system of fraud, repenting to a money that was sound and honored God's standards of honesty and righteousness, would that be better for humanity or worse for humanity? I'm just going to let you think on that. I'm going to give you a second. Better or worse? It's not rocket scientist. It's not rocket science. Bitcoin has not changed my mind. I believed the Bible before Bitcoin. I knew as a man, especially as a church leader, I had to live in a way that honored not just today, but the future as well. I knew that we should be investing in the next generation, that men should be discipling their children and their wife, that families should be worshiping together at home and in the church. But I felt alone in these attempts to do this. No one else wants to lead family worship. I was an outlier. I didn't even know where to start. I mean, I knew people on the internet who were doing this, but locally, forget about it. No one wants to come to a church with no childcare. That's too stressful on the parents. It frustrated me to no end. Like everyone thought raising a godly family and fighting the degeneracy of Satan in our society was going to be easy peasy. Like we can just take out Satan's attempts here with Sunday school and, games for the kids at youth. What Bitcoin has done, though, has fixed the money problem and propelled me into what's called a low time preference lifestyle, and done so with more vigor. This is what this podcast exists for. Not really about Bitcoin. It exists to help us come on this journey into this uncharted territory of low time preference Christianity, which really is just the OG of Christianity. It's just Christianity. What does it look like to serve Jesus with your great grandkids that you will never meet on your mind? What does economics look like? Savings, marriage, parenting, church, education, and on we will go. It's time to revive a low time preference Christianity, a Christianity that thinks of legacy, a Christianity that's not focused and obsessed on the now, a Christianity that does not have attached to it consumerism, a Christianity with eternity on the outlook. Because Christianity, my friends, is the most low time preference worldview there is. Our time preference is infinity. So come on me with this journey of low time preference Christianity and do the thing today that will bless your great grandchildren even tomorrow. And we trust that the Lord is going to do that by his grace and in his power. Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Bible and Bitcoin podcast. I'm your host, Alin Armstrong, aka Pastor Coin. I hope it was a blessing to you. If it was a blessing to you, please like, share, subscribe, follow wherever you're watching or listening to this. It helps us tremendously get this important word out. Thank you all, and God bless. I wrote the Bible and Bitcoin for you, Bible-believing Christian, and in it I lay out the biblical basis for what money is, why our current fiat monetary system is ungodly, and how Bitcoin is the best and most viable, biblically compliant replacement for government fiat money. There's even a small group study guide in the back with additional resources to study with your church small group. Get it on Amazon or pay with Bitcoin at thebibleandbitcoin.com for a discount.